Some destinies are cursed before they're born. Ilara hid in the shadows of the castle, heart pounding in her chest. The cold stone walls loomed over her, oppressive and suffocating, whispering secrets of her unknown past. Each morning felt like a battle. She clutched a tray close to her chest, a shield against the world, moving swiftly between tables. Just another servant, one of many lost souls scurrying through the grand hall. But no, she felt different, divided. With every step, she avoided eye contact. No one looked at her. Noble faces impervious, their laughter ringing through the air like a cruel melody. They feasted, drank, and reveled, while she faded into the background. A mere flicker in a world bursting with life. She existed purely to serve, to be overlooked, to float in the periphery of their lives. The deeper truth crashed against her like waves. But then there was him. Draven, the king. A brooding figure, his very presence demanded attention, silencing even the most boisterous nobles. That dark gaze flickered across the hall, and when it met hers, it sent shivers racing down her spine. More than just his power electrified the air. It was something deeper, a connection that tugged at her heart, whispering promises of things she couldn't comprehend. But to think of those things? That was forbidden. The kingdom around them was a tempest. Frail and volatile, treachery lurked in every corner, threatening to pounce. Ilara lowered her head, losing herself in the ritual of servitude. Each tray she carried felt heavier than the last, a reminder of her place, of her role in this grand, unforgiving machine of politics and power. The swirling whispers of her fellow servants surrounded her like hungry shadows, spreading tales of impending doom, of betrayal that loomed just beyond reach. The tension crackled in the air, palpable, suffocating her voice, making her want to scream. His royal blood was her cage. Beautiful, yet terrifying. He was a beacon in the storm, drawing her in, complicating everything she thought she understood. What were the rules of the game? She knew she would never breach the invisible barrier of class. Her life here was stifling, a gilded prison, and the outside world? It held nothing but despair for someone like her. The stories of her family whispered through her mind in paralyzing echoes. Orphaned at a young age, she'd been taken in for her utility, molded into the servant they needed, a thing rather than a person. The details of her past had lost their shape, fading into distant memories. She had become a shadow of what could have been, longing for a sense of belonging, but never truly finding it. And then there was Draven. Oh, how temptation surged in her veins when she saw him. Those dark eyes often strayed toward the horizon, searching for something, someone lost in the mists of time, shrouded in mystery. Caught between their worlds, she hesitated. Would he even notice if she dared to dream beyond her place? The urges that pulled her closer to him filled the air with electricity, a tension that could snap at any moment. Each encounter felt charged, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity that whispered across the space dividing them. She fought against her growing feelings, against the whispers of her heart that dared to hope for something more. What terrified her even more was the idea that she might be more than just a nameless servant. What if she played a crucial role? A key piece in a dark game far beyond her understanding. Betrayal simmered in the castle's corridors, and whispers of revolt echoed through the halls. Ilara was acutely aware that her existence was tethered to the whims of those above her. She felt the pull of fate, resonating deep within her, hinting at a purpose beyond mere servitude. Could she dare to uncover those secrets woven into their lives? Or was she destined to remain hidden forever? A pawn drowned in the shadows of the king's castle. Ilara had been a servant at the castle for nearly a decade. Orphaned at 16, she had wandered the streets, hungry and lost. The fire that took her parents snuffed out all she had known. After weeks of despair, she stumbled upon Castle Varenth. The sight of it loomed like a beast, grand and intimidating, yet it also held a sliver of promise. For her utility, she was taken in. They needed hands to clean, to serve, to toil. From the gruesome laundry rooms where steam clouded her vision to the kitchens filled with boiling pots and sizzling pans, Alara worked tirelessly. Each grueling task was a step away from the streets, yet something inside her had twisted. A part of her had died in that fire, a part that craved warmth, love, family. In its place, a shell. Fleeting glimpses of past lives danced through her mind, images of laughter and love. Sharp pangs of loss cut deeper than any blade. What had been? Stories echoed like ghostly whispers. She touched the scar on her wrist, a reminder of the flames, of the family she never had the chance to know. She could never forget what was taken from her, but every day, she lived in the hope of something brighter. Draven, with his dark secrets and burdens, was a stark contrast. Born into a world steeped in lineage, power, and betrayal, he carried the weight of 1,000 decisions on his shoulders. His bloodline had seen more treachery than loyalty, leaving scars behind that didn't heal. The castle itself was haunted by the ghosts of kings past, their ambitions soaking deep into the walls. Yet behind closed doors, he was just a man, isolated, burdened, and confused. As Alara watched him, she'd seen him sipping wine alone, staring into the void, a kingdom on his shoulders. His facade remained strong, but cracks appeared when solitude wrapped around him like a blanket, pulling him down into despair. Did he too feel as trapped as she did? Rumors of impending revolt whispered through the stone corridors, a tense undercurrent that seeped into the air. The kingdom was roiling with discontent. Factions formed in the shadows, brewing rebellion against his rule. Alara's heart raced at the thought of chaos spilling into the castle, threatening everything she knew, a world she'd fought hard to maintain. Tonight was the Grand Ball, an event that would ripple through the kingdom, meant to showcase Draven's reign and connect him with potential allies. Yet, the undercurrent of unease simmered beneath the facade of splendor. Would his royal gathering strengthen their position, or tighten the noose? As Alara prepared for the evening's festivities, she worked tirelessly in the kitchens, her hands deft and moving swiftly. The anticipation buzzed in the air as servants scurried about, laying out jewels, satin, and gold. Alara couldn't help but catch glimpses of the noblewomen draped in luxurious attire, laughter spilling from their lips, everything she would never be. But her tasks pulled her away from those thoughts, grounding her back to reality. She was just a servant. Her place was at the periphery, serving and cleaning. Yet, under the flickering light of candles, she glanced toward the banquet hall. She could imagine Draven standing tall, the center of attention, a beacon of power surrounded by nobility. In that moment, she felt a pull, a magnetic connection tugging at her insides. It felt foolish, yet wholly undeniable. If only she could be more than a whisper within the castle walls. If only she could step into the light, her existence acknowledged next to him. As night fell, she found herself in the hall, silently serving drinks, the atmosphere charged with energy. The way Draven moved, the way he commanded the room, it was intoxicating. Those eyes that had brushed against hers once, now captivated by a sea of admirers. And there she stood, unseen, but aching. But fate had a way of intertwining destinies. When she accidentally bumped into him, the air shifted. Draven's eyes darkened, and the moment stretched. Time slowed. The music faded. The royal attention turned, and for the first time, she stood not as a shadow, but as a piece of the grand puzzle. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," she stammered, flustered, heart racing. His voice was low and steady, wrapping around her. "Are you all right, Alara?" She blinked, surprise washing over her. He knew her name. It sent warmth flooding through her. "Yes, Good. The evening holds much promise." What was this fire igniting between them? It surged like wild ivy, stubborn and infectious. She couldn't look away, drawn by something deeper than mere admiration. The air crackled. It felt dangerous, enticing. Before either could utter another word, chaos erupted outside the hall, shattering the moment like glass. A loud crash followed by shouts. Alara's heart dropped. The brewing treachery she'd heard whispers of had finally breached the castle walls. Was this how it would end? In a storm of blood and betrayal? Tension tightened around her throat as Draven turned, his demeanor shifting from royal grace to fierce protector. Would he reclaim his kingdom? Or was she destined to hide in shadows forever? The echoes of chaos reverberated through the grand hall, shattering the facade of the revelry. Panic swept over the guests like a ripple through water. Alara's heart raced as she clutched the tray, the silver goblets trembling in her grip. Draven's expression morphed from surprise to determination, a warrior's spirit igniting within him. "Stay here," he commanded, voice low, gaze intense. Before she could respond, he surged forward, cutting through the crowd with the authority of a king. As he moved, Alara's pulse quickened. She couldn't sit idle. Something deep inside her urged her to follow, to not let fear hold her back. What if this was the catalyst that changed everything? With a quick glance at the noblewomen shielding themselves in chaos, she steeled herself and dashed after him. The sounds of conflict grew louder, shouts, clashing metal, and a bone-deep sense of dread. Once outside the hall, the world transformed. Guests stumbled in every direction, servants shouted for help, and the guards were struggling to contain the fray. A group of rebels had stormed the castle, their faces masked and their intentions violent. Draven stood resolute, his posture unwavering, eyes blazing. The kingship inside him radiated power, and Alara felt it thrumming in her veins. Her admiration morphed into something else, fear and fury igniting within her. She couldn't remain on the sidelines anymore. "Stay back!" Draven barked at a group of guards trying to engage. "We need strategy." Alara ducked behind a pillar, overhearing fragments of conversations, heart pounding as she gripped the edges of her apron. This was not just rebellion. It was chaos unleashed, and she was at the eye of the storm. What did this mean for her? Would this night seal her fate forever as just a servant? Or could she help drive the tide against this darkness? Suddenly, the sound of steel rang out. One of the rebels lunged toward Draven, a sword shimmering under the torchlight. Time seemed to stretch. Alara's instincts kicked in. She spotted a discarded pitcher nearby, a solid object, one that could interrupt the moment. With adrenaline fueling her, she grabbed it, sprinting forward. "Look out!" she screamed, throwing the pitcher. It collided with the rebel, staggering him just enough for Draven to deflect the blow aimed at him. Draven turned, surprise etched across his face, blending quickly into appreciation. "Alara," he called, voice a mixture of disbelief and admiration. But she didn't have time to bask in his acknowledgement. Another rebel advanced, swords clashing against metal, the sounds ringing painfully in her ears. Alara's heart raced as she joined Draven's side, adrenaline surging through her limbs. "Stay close," he instructed, fierce protectiveness lacing his tone. They moved in synchrony, fending off attackers, their instincts driving them closer together. Alara found herself matching his rhythm, feeling empowered in a way she had never imagined. Through the muck of madness, a deeper understanding unraveled. The connection surge wasn't merely the realm of fantastical kinship. It was forged in battle, in shared resolve. In that fleeting moment, Alara felt a sense of belonging she had never dreamed possible. But just as quickly, a deeper dread knotted in her stomach. What if he were captured or wounded? Would she ever be left with nothing again? Draven spun, catching her gaze with intensity. "We need a retreat. This isn't just a fight for the crown. It's life and death. Trust me." Alara nodded, fear mingling with determination. Trust. She had to trust him, and not just as a king, but as a man. "Follow Draven shouted, leading the way through the throngs of chaos. Alara moved behind him, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. She was no longer just a servant. Here, right now, she was a partner, a fighter standing side by side, a revelation that terrified and exhilarated her. They navigated through the echoes of battle, slipping into hidden corridors, where flickering torches illuminated damp stone walls, tension wrapping around them. All of a sudden, Draven stopped, pressing against the wall. "Here." His voice was nearly a whisper now, urgency pulsing in the air. "We can't stay out there." Alara's breath quickened. "What do we do?" "First, we need to regroup." He peered down the corridor, his instincts sharp. "And then I'll need your help." Her heart fluttered, excitement blossoming. He needed her. An incredibly powerful king needed her. "Whatever you need." He looked at her, the weight of his gaze sending a rush through her veins. "If we are to survive this, we must work as one. Can you do that?" "Absolutely." They shared a moment, understanding unspoken, a shared resolve solidifying between them. But just as they steadied their breaths, villains crept around the corner, hot on their trail. The unmistakable sounds of steel clanking grew closer, voices rising in anger. "Trust me," he said again, determination etched into every word. "Follow my lead." In that moment, Alara understood. This was the point of no return, a line drawn between darkness and light. They would either survive together or perish. Would it be freedom or the end? Would she stay forever in the shadows, or claim her place by his side? With a shared nod, they prepared for the fight ahead. The corridor was dark, grim, filled with the echoes of chaos that reverberated just outside. Alara felt the thrum of panic beneath her skin, heart quickening with the pulse of impending conflict. Draven stood beside her, fierce and resolute. The flickering torchlight cast shadows on the walls, playing tricks on their minds, escalating tension with every breath. "Alara," he whispered, eyes searching hers. "I need you to listen closely. They'll be coming for us. We can't let them find us." "I understand," she replied, voice firm despite the fear clawing inside her. "What do we do next?" "There's an armory a few halls down. If we can get weapons, we can fight back." Draven's gaze hardened. "But we have to be quick. If they catch us alone..." Her stomach twisted at the thought, but she couldn't back down now, not with everything at stake. "I won't let them catch us," she vowed. They pressed forward through the dim halls. Draven took the lead, exuding a strength that steadied Alara's fraying nerves. Each step was calculated, grounded in both purpose and instinct honed from years of ruling, and Alara fell in step behind him, hyper-aware of her surroundings. Every creak of the floorboards sent jolts of adrenaline surging through her. As they reached the doorway that led to the armory, Alara's pulse pounded in her ears. She glanced around, the fear of being discovered nearly suffocating. What if there are more rebels inside? Draven's jaw clenched, confidence unwavering. "Then we'll handle them. Together." With that, he pushed the door open just enough for them to slip inside. The chamber smelled of iron and oil, weapons lining the walls, swords, daggers, and shields ready for battle. It felt like a treasure trove and a tomb all at once. Alara's eyes widened. They had to arm themselves quickly. "Where do we start?" she asked, breathless with urgency. "Grab whatever you can," Draven instructed. "We need to be ready for anything." Her fingers brushed against the cold metal of a dagger. It felt impossibly light in her grasp as she hefted it experimentally. "This will do," she murmured, sensing its sharpness, a thrill running through her. Draven picked a sword off the wall, its weight resting comfortably in his hand. He moved with an elegance that belied the chaos outside. "We'll have to move fast. They'll realize we're in here any moment." Just as he spoke, footsteps echoed outside the armory. A wave of tension gripped them both. "Elara," he said, urgency flooding his voice. "Now or never. We have to make our exit." She nodded, resolve tightening within her. Together, they stepped toward the door, breath shallow, hearts racing in synchrony. This was their moment, a chance to make a stand, to shape their fate. Suddenly the door creaked open fully. 2 rebels burst inside, their eyes wide with surprise. The air thickened with dread. "Get down!" Draven shouted, and instinctively they both dropped. He swung his sword, catching one of the men off guard, the blade cutting through the air with lethal precision. The first rebel fell, a scream escaping his lips, echoing in the confined space. The second turned, caught off guard by the sudden attack. Elara scrambled to her feet, just as Draven disarmed him, the sword clattering from his grip. "Now!" Draven ordered, pushing forward. She rushed to assist him, adrenaline fueling her. The rebel staggered back, and she instinctively lunged with her dagger, plunging it into his side. He gasped, eyes wide in disbelief, crumpling to the ground. They stood there, breathless and wide-eyed. The reality of what they had done hit Elara like a brick. She had taken a life. The gravity settled over her, cold and heavy. Draven turned to her, a mix of pride and concern flickering across his face. "You did well," he said, his voice low and steady. "Better than I expected." "It was instinct," she replied shakily, glancing at the bodies. "I didn't think—" "We're still alive. That's what matters," Draven interrupted, resolve coursing through him. "We must keep moving." They stepped cautiously over the fallen bodies, emerging back into the hall. Sounds of battle were thicker now, the air alive with tension. The chaos had expanded. Shouts, clashes of steel, and cries for help tangled into one harrowing symphony. Panic settled in the pit of her stomach as they navigated deeper into the heart of the castle, every corner a new obstacle, every silence pregnant with dread. Suddenly, the ground beneath them tremored with the pounding of boots. "This way!" Draven shouted, leading them through a hidden passage. The narrow corridor was dim, barely illuminated by scattered torches. The walls felt alive, almost conspiratorial, as they dashed forward. Elara fought against the weight of doubt, her mind racing. Could they really escape? What did they plan to do after? "Why did they come for you?" she asked, breath hitching as they turned a corner. Draven glanced back at her, the gravity of his past etched deep into his features. "To overthrow me. I've made enemies over the years, people who want to see the old kingdom rise again. A kingdom I promised to tear down. What do they want? The throne. Power. Control." His voice had darkened, filled with the weight of his burdens. Did he truly believe he could face them alone? The flames of rebellion flickered closer, and Elara wrestled with both his fears and her own. "What if we don't make it?" she asked, vulnerability breaking through her bravado. Draven looked at her, fierce determination glimmering in his eyes. "We will. We have to." In that moment, something shifted. The bond that grew between them wasn't just born of fate. It was forged in the heat of battle, the urgency of survival, and the trembling fear of the unknown. "Together," she breathed, the words a promise, a vow. They pressed on, determined to face whatever shadows awaited them. Heart racing, fingers tightly gripping weapons, they prepared for what lay ahead. Freedom or death awaited outside the doors of their prison. Was this the moment they would claim their fates? Or would darkness consume them, leaving nothing but a whisper in the corridors of history? The narrow passage opened into a wider chamber, dimly lit by flickering torches. Elara's heart raced, pounding against her ribs. The chaos of the outside world felt like a distant storm, but the reality pressed closer with every sound of rebellion echoing in the night. "We need to find a way out," Draven urged, his sharp gaze scanning their surroundings. The tension in the air was thick with urgency. "Where do we go?" Elara asked, breath hitching as she tore her eyes from the shadows closing in around them. Draven moved to a barred window, glancing over his shoulder. If we can get through this, we'll reach the lower grounds. Isn't that where they're gathering? Exactly why we must act fast. Panic tightened in Alara's chest as they heard the unmistakable shouts from outside. Find him! Don't let him escape! Draven turned, determination etching deeper into his features. Stay low. Stay quiet. With nimble fingers, he forced the iron bars apart. You first, he urged. No, not without you, she protested, instinctively wanting to stay by his side. Trust me, Alara. You need to go. Nerves ignited her veins, but there was no backing down. Alara slipped through the window, the cool night air brushing sharply against her skin. She barely hit the ground before turning to help Draven through. As soon as he was free, they broke into a run, fleeing through the darkened garden that surrounded the castle. Alara's breath came in ragged bursts, each heartbeat a drum of fury and fear. We have to find the others, she shouted, her mind racing as they forged their path. They can't be far behind us. They're likely close, Draven responded, eyes scanning the grounds. If we regroup, we have a chance. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush made them both pause. Stop! A gravelly voice yelled as a rebel appeared, eyes gleaming with malice and bloodlust. Get back! Draven shouted, stepping in front of Alara, sword drawn with ferocity. Do you really believe you can get away? The rebel sneered, brandishing his weapon with a crazed expression. Stand down! Alara shouted, adrenaline lifting her spirit. With a quick movement, she fished out her dagger, resolve flooding her as she stepped forward beside Draven. The rebel lunged, but Draven deflected the blow, engaging fiercely. Their swords clashed, creating a cacophony that echoed into the night. Alara spotted an opening and rushed forward, using her dagger to strike at the rebel's side. The man gasped, surprise stealing his strength. Before she could process her actions, the rebel fell to the ground, and shock settled heavily in her chest. Draven turned to her, eyes wide with a mix of pride and disbelief. You did well, he exclaimed, breathing hard. But there was no time to celebrate. They had to keep moving. More footsteps echoed from the castle, voices rising in urgency. Come on, we need to go. As they retreated deeper into the shadows, Alara felt the weight of what they had just done. She had taken a life. The thrill of survival surged alongside the chill of horror. Was this who she had become? A fighter? They pressed on through the garden until they reached an overgrown path. This way, Draven urged, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging outside. But before they could move forward, another rebel emerged from the trees, this one larger and more imposing. Thought you could run away, did you? The man taunted, his voice dripping with menace. Draven clenched his sword tighter, fury igniting in his eyes. We're not afraid of you. Alara felt a surge of courage, standing firm beside him. Together, she yelled, grasping her dagger as they surged forward, forcing the tension into action. Combat ensued, the clash of metal ringing violently in the air. Alara moved with instinct, her heart roaring within her, knowing she needed to fight for every precious moment. Draven struck fiercely, his movements precise and practiced. She maneuvered around him, finding small openings to attack. The rebel swung at Draven, but Alara darted in, her dagger finding a vulnerable target. The man roared in fury, falling back in shock, but their enemy wasn't done yet. More shadows closed in, each a harbinger of chaos determined to snuff out their light. But together, they clashed, their steps in sync, delivering swift justice to those who sought to destroy them. The weight of the fight pressed down, spilling blood, spitting fury and loss into each swing of the blade. We can't hold them forever, Draven shouted, grit in his voice. We have to find the others. We need our forces united. Right, Alara cried back, thrusting her dagger hard, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Together they pressed, inching toward freedom. At last, the battle began to ebb, the rebels falling before them as they forged onward through the darkness. Their world was shifting, filled with fire and resolve. They stood strong together, hearts pounding, fear uniting their spirits as they made their way past the remnants of chaos. Victory lifted them along a path of uncertainty. "Where do we go next?" Alara gasped, breathless, hope swirling within her. Draven turned, a fierce light illuminating his expression. "We find the others. We rally, and then we fight back. Together," she interjected, defiance blooming in her heart. With each shared glance, clarity bloomed. They could reclaim their fate. This was just the beginning. Together, they emerged from the chaos, prepared to face whatever awaited them in the shadows beyond. The night air thrummed with possibility as Alara and Draven raced through the forest. Their hearts beat in sync, adrenaline pushing them forward. They could barely hear their own thoughts over the sounds of the battle behind them. Metal clanging and desperate shouts pierced the night, but they had one focus: finding their people. "How many are left?" Alara called as they burst into a clearing, breathless and raw from the fight. Draven's brow furrowed, determination etched on his face. "We can't lose anyone else. We need to rally our forces." A low rumble of voices ahead caught their attention. They skidded to a halt, catching sight of a makeshift gathering of their allies among the trees. Faces smeared with dirt, eyes darting with apprehension, they had nestled against the fort's remnants, survivors clinging to hope. "Your Majesty!" A soldier rushed forward, relief flooding his features. "We thought you were lost." "Not yet," Draven replied, stepping forward with renewed vigor. "Gather everyone. We're taking back our kingdom." Alara felt a rush of pride swell within her. Their presence ignited a spark among the crowd, fear transforming into courage. "Where do we start?" Alara asked, her heart racing with the sense of urgency. Families were woven into this cause. Each person mattered. "We regroup," Draven said. "Then we'll assault the gate. We can't let them threaten our homes any longer." The fire in his voice commanded attention. With swift action, they rounded up their fighters, and Alara coordinated with a few of the more experienced warriors. Together, they gathered what little supplies were left and fortified their position against the chaos outside. The gathering thrummed with anticipation, building toward a singular goal. Alara caught glances exchanged, hope mingled with fear, but there was no backing down now. Alara stepped next to Draven as the weight of responsibility loomed. "What if we're outnumbered?" "We won't be," he assured her, eyes fierce. "Our will is stronger than theirs. Every person here wants the same thing: freedom." She nodded, her resolve fortifying. "Then let's make our stand." With their hearts pounding, they moved back toward the fort's entrance, fortifying the gate with every weapon they could find: battered swords, makeshift shields, anything to defend what they held dear. Then, chaos erupted. Shouts of alarm sounded as rebels stormed into view, the sound of boots pounding against the earth a dark promise. "They're here!" a soldier yelled, raising his sword. Alara felt a rush of fear spike as she instinctively stepped closer to Draven, hand on her dagger, ready for what lay ahead. "Stand firm," Draven shouted, raising his own sword, voice ringing like a bell through the night. As the first wave crashed upon them, chaos erupted. Alara fought alongside their people, her movements instinctual, a blur of action and fury. Every swing connected with purpose, each clash a moment of defiance. And together they held their ground. "Watch your left!" she yelled to a young soldier, feeling the tension tighten around them. Draven fought with unmatched intensity, his presence commanding as he cut through the darkness with every strike. "Push them back!" he roared. The rebels attacked with a ferocity that threatened to overwhelm, but Alara's spirit ignited, her defiance peaking. She moved with a lethal grace, each strike an affirmation of life, of love. "Together," she cried, the word charged with energy that knitted them together as a family. With every passing moment, the tide began to shift. Their numbers swelled as more allies joined, defying their fate and rising against the storm. The fierce sounds of combat surged forward like a tidal wave. Yet within the chaos, Alara felt a fire burn in her chest. A flame fed not just by survival, but by the bonds they had forged in the struggle. As the last of the rebel attackers fell, exhaustion hung heavy in the air, mingling with the taste of victory. Cheers erupted, raising the atmosphere high into the night, their spirits unbroken, lives reclaimed. Draven turned to Alara, breathless but triumphant. "We did it." "Together," she replied fiercely, pride swelling in her heart. This was the dawn of their future, a testimony to their fight, their bond, their freedom. But an ominous rumble pulsed from the shadows ahead. Draven's eyes narrowed, determination deepening as he gripped her hand. "This isn't over yet. We'll need to rebuild." Alara nodded, ready for whatever came next. They had faced the tempest and survived. Now they would shape their own fate, hand in hand, against whatever darkness loomed. As they prepared for the challenges ahead, hope burned brightly, igniting a path toward a future they would claim together.